Hello and good evening. Welcome to round 7 of IRC Season 6 of F1 2020. Good evening. My name is 8 Cylinders of Fury, and joining me in the commentary box today will be Rusty, Nish, and of course, Deepak Raj will be handling our camera work for today. Rusty, how are you doing this evening?
Super excited. We had Spa last weekend, which turned out to be a brilliant race, and we're back to an iconic track in Silverstone. So I cannot look forward to the race. Any early predictions?
Uh, I think we do have a certain someone returning today, so I guess we'll save the predictions until the rest of the people in chat find out who is making a return. But I think we should jump straight into getting to know a little bit further about Silverstone. So let's go ahead and hop into the track detail video. Silverstone Circuit has hosted the British Grand Prix as early as 1948 alongside Brands Hatch and Aintree, but became the sole official venue in 1987. Constructed on a decommissioned RAF bomber base, this 5.8-kilometer circuit contains the infamous Maggots-Beckett's Chapel complex between turns 10 and 12, and Brooklyn's Bend, which serves as an entry point from the old bridge layout. Let's see where the dogfights occurred during Season 5's race at Silverstone. The run down the Wellington Straight breaking into Brooklands Corner will be a crucial overtaking spot, but will also segue into Lovefield, allowing cars to remain side by side and defend their position. The club chicane just before the start-finish straight will be switchback central for our drivers. And the Vale Corner will be a high-speed braking zone after peeling down the Hangar Straight and through the high-speed Stowe Corner.
And we're all set to go across the Silverstone circuit and see how it is you do a hot lap around here. Onto the start-finish straight as you get ready to encounter Abbey, the flat-out right-hander T1. Through Abbey, now through the turn, left-hand turn of Farm. As you brake at turn 3, a late apex slightly, which shoots you onto turn 4 of Arena. Exiting out of Arena, it's important that you get onto the throttle as quickly as you can because that determines how much speed you take through this first DRS section of the Wellington Straight before having to brake at turn 6 Brooklands, taking a very late left apex over there as the car shoots itself out of Lovefield, as you can see jumping out of Lovefield, then onto Whitcourt, Casey getting massive oversteer through there. Like most esport drivers, we stick to the right hand side as much as we can. Now through the fast right hander of Cops, which then sets the car for the three most beautiful corners of this track, jumping through Maggots turn 10, 11, 12 and 13. These are the Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel complex. As you see, we are jumping out of Chapel, getting out of the DRS straight of DRS zone of Hangar Straight. And this is a massive overtaking zone because a lot of drivers are going to determine their strategy. Talk to Jeff through this section before Stowe. As you can see, the car is going through Stowe right now. Casey not taking too much advantage of the track limits on the left. Locking up hard through Vale, turn 16, as the car shoots itself out of club again. And this is how you pretty much take a lap across the Silverstone circuit, and Casey shows us how to get that done.
I think 142 is
As Casey comes across the Sir Lewis Hamilton Straight, we will soon be seeing all of our IRC boys taking their shot at the hot lap to get into pole. And one of my favorite things about Silverstone, especially in quali, is everyone's pretty much every single car is going to be out there on the softs because it's an easy one stopper. And that's going to show the true pace of all of these drivers. And I'm pretty sure they are ready in the lobby, in the pits. So let's head on there and see what's up with them. Yep. Going through the driver names, if you were quick enough, you would have noticed that we have a certain someone who has quite the name in our community, and a certain someone who's back here to defend his championship, the champion of season 5, Tier 1. Marinello Baby is back racing with us today. Thoughts on that 8 cylinder?
Oh, it's so box office, isn't it? 4-time champion, or is it 5? I can't even keep count now. Mara has dominated pretty much every season he's participated in. It's proper box office to have him back this race, and as you said, it's going to be all about defending that title for him. Not entirely sure if he's going to be participating the whole season, but do we have a spectacle on our hands today Not only Mara, we have a lot of returning drivers who were not present for the last race. I believe we only had about 11 drivers on the grid last time around in Spa due to varying reasons. But this time we've got a much more populated grid, and I think we're expecting to see a couple more drivers as well. We're expecting about 18 is what the prediction was. So yeah, it's going to be a great race. Let's have a look at the weather forecast here. Qualifying seems to be fairly cloudy, but it does seem to be dry, and so does the race as well.
Tries are the best for Silverstone, shows a lot. I mean, the track itself is so challenging. You've got a bunch of varying types of corners. At the same time, you've got two straights for you to try and overtake, as no more players would, I'm sure, like to be on top of the standings and everywhere on the standings, but that's unfortunately not where it is. On top right now is Eccentric with a slender lead of just 8 points as he tries to fend off Amit at 75. And below them, Helium and Tanish separated by just 5 points at 57 and 52. And then you have Prakhar and Moto separated by one, and the rest of the field so close together.
Yep, championship really is hotting up now. We are coming into sort of the middle stages of the championship. We've had a chance for all of our drivers to establish their credentials in the first couple of rounds. We are coming now down to round 7 at Silverstone, and it's a fan favorite, you could say. Silverstone, I believe it's a very fun track to drive in an F1 car, and more importantly, it's very high on tire wear because of all the high speed sections that we have on this track. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be sort of a old meets new kind of dynamic here at Silverstone is what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. As we'll get back on board with one of these drivers, Deepak Raj is trying to sort some of our issues out on the back end. We are super thankful to lads like Deepak Raj who are with us continuously streaming and bringing all of this racing action to you, along with so many others at IRC who put in a lot of hours during their week to make this possible. We've got quite a few drivers out. Interestingly, Pro Player out on mediums, but I think he often doesn't find time to practice on the weekend. So this is probably just him trying to get some practice. Fair assumption, you guys? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be as we've seen a lot of times this season. It's going to be first couple of minutes, just drivers taking an opportunity to explore track limits, just to get an idea of how their car's behaving, how the setups feel. That's going to be the initial period here. As we see a driver getting very sideways, that seems like Oxygen. Yep, Oxygen in the Alpha Tauri, getting very sideways, coming out of Cop's corner there, heading into Sector 2. We're going to be seeing a lot of action there. I feel like Sector 2 is going to be where we have Maggots Packets, obviously. That whole complex is going to be an interesting challenge. Pretty much flat out in these cars, but it's still going to be a test of drivers' determination, especially if you're following another car through there. It's going to be elbows out and balls to the wall racing. I'm really looking forward to it. Just seeing a couple of initial lap times now being put on the board. I'm a myth in P1, Eccentric in P2, and something tells me if that's going to be a constant trend throughout this season, because these two guys have been exchanging blows.
Absolutely. It's pretty much how it is on the top of the table right now. Eccentric went fastest, but Myth not a lot quicker. I think, what's that, 600ths of a second separating them. So that's not a lot. That's probably just being closer to the apex on one of these corners as we are on board No More Pro Player, putting on some more banker laps. And talking about the crash at Cops by Oxygen, he is super lucky to go into the barrier nose first, because had he gone at a slightly different angle, that might well have been the end of his session, because as we all know, these drivers, the settings are set to realistic damage.
I mean, this game's damage model is very unique, isn't it? You can hit the wall sideways, as in both sidewalls of your tires can go and smack into the wall at 150 kilometers an hour and they could be fine, but you could slightly graze the barrier with your front wing and your front left wheel or something, and then both of them just completely disintegrate. So it's an interesting damage model that Codemasters has implemented. It's not very consistent, is what I'm trying to say. But let's chat about Codemasters. I mean, we've had our fair number of issues with them over the past couple of races. Lots of disconnects and server restarts required from our side in order to get the race weekend underway. But yeah, well, the less said about that. Let's just hope that this race weekend goes exactly as planned. As we do see Kaushik Dumala going purple in sector 2, it seemed like for a second there. But
super clean through the sector. Got the perfect line through Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel as he comes across. Let's see what's the time. Only good for third fastest and off by a second and 2/10. So I'm pretty sure he might have made a mistake somewhere, probably in sector 1. As couple all out of shape coming out of the final corner.
Alfa Romeo boys are struggling right now. Vanish as well currently in the hits. We do notice that one of our Ferrari drivers is currently out this weekend. He also, I don't think he was racing at Spa, that's Bracker, and I do believe he's not been in a number of IRC events over the past 2 or so weeks, because I do believe he's busy in his personal life. So it will be a little bit more of a harder task for him when he does return, because he finds himself at a handicap against the other drivers who obviously have 2 extra race weekends underneath their belt in order to rack up some points in the Drivers' Championship. What are your thoughts?
I do agree. I think, especially given the consistency that Myth and Eccentric are going on with, pretty much holding down the first 2 spots of the race, it's going to be super hard for him to catch up to them unless these guys start making mistakes or start missing races. But I mean, you could never say. Prakar, we all know, has the race pace, has quali pace as well. It's just about him putting in a little bit of practice to get familiarized himself with the game, especially when you start playing multiple simcade or sim racing games. There are minor adjustments you need to get used to as you hop from one game to another. But again, all of these drivers super technical with their driving, and they do make those adjustments, but sometimes you just need a few laps under your belt.
I mean, we've had drivers across, maybe not tier 1, because these drivers truly are the creme de la creme of IRC, if you will. Not to take anything away from all our other drivers in our other tiers, but I'm sure they are just as capable. But I've heard from some of the drivers where it takes a little getting used to, maybe switching between ACC and F1, because the braking is a little bit different. F1, obviously, most drivers of ours, on wheel especially, do not use ABS, so you have to modulate brake pressure to prevent lockups. But in ACC, you can just apply 100% brake pressure normally, because you've got that assist of ABS on, not in terms of actual in-game assist, but the cars themselves have ABS in real life, so drivers are allowed to use them. So it's definitely a different driving experience. Even on a game, driving an F1 car is definitely different to driving a GT3 car. It's lesser about planning your cornering speeds and more about getting your line absolutely correct. But we were talking a little bit earlier about Ferrari boys, and even though Prakar is not here, you do have one absolutely mighty driver representing Ferrari today, and he'll be hoping to get them back into the points, if not anything more.
Not the best start to his lap, as he ran wide over there, but now coming across one of the most important sections. Can we stay on board, Maranello baby, please? Yep, coming through. You want to take all of this curve, just dab on the brakes. No, very brave, no brakes at all, just lifts a little, but unfortunately invalidates his lap. But I'm pretty sure he might want to finish this lap to figure out where he is in terms of pace. No, he's pulling away and giving way. Meanwhile,
yep, we do have no more pro player coming through on a fast lap. It seemed like he was going purple through the first 1 or 2 sectors. He was on pole when we went racing at France 2 weekends earlier. Comes across the line here, and he puts in a 1:24.6, which puts him about 3/10 off the current time on provisional pole.
but we couldn't stay on board with him for the whole lap, but I'd probably be happy taking P3, especially given the kind of grid that is around you. Myth back out on a hot lap. Maybe we'll go out on another hot lap as well. One thing about this game is track conditions do improve by a large margin. I think like you could. Oh, there's couple in the wall. Hopefully, yeah, looks all right. Probably
Yeah,
just lost it out of Beckett's.
he'll be thanking his lucky stars that his qualifying isn't over right there. But yeah, as you were saying, track evolution, I believe, is what you're
Yeah.
talking about, and track evolution is a very big factor. How big of a factor is it around certain tracks compared to others, or is it something that's a constant across all tracks?
How much time I have on this game, it just feels like it's a constant. Obviously, some tracks do require more grip to extract more lap times, like over here or like say Kota Sector 1. But in general, it is pretty even if you consider the lap times. The percentage is like very similar. I think around Silverstone, if you were to do exactly the same thing everywhere, just because you'll have lower scrub and lower slip, you'll probably gain about 3/10 by the end of the session.
Interesting. So definitely time still left on the table then for a lot of our drivers as we're coming down to the last 5 minutes of qualifying here, just crossing the 6-minute mark. Currently the fastest time we have on the board right now, 1:24.3, so maybe a high 1:23, the mid 1:23 is definitely still there on the cards, I believe then. As we just see Shalala coming across the line, registering a 1:25.7. And I do believe Maranello has gone onto the medium tire.
That's interesting. Probably going. It is an interesting call, to be honest. Not something I expected. Tanish goes fastest of all by 500ths of a second, gets the provisional pole right now. Blinder of a lap by him in that Alpha.
There is not that large margin here between the fastest and slowest time, just over 1.4 seconds between Danish and Kaushik right now, and deeply apologies, Charlotte right now. So if one driver, if any one or many drivers can find time here, then the pole position is still up for grabs for whoever can put in a banging time, as Danish just goes fastest in the session so far. A couple of drivers still haven't set a lap, Maranello being the most notable one, and as you said, him going on to the medium tires definitely is interesting. Maybe long first stint, one stop, I think, maybe if he
One stopper for sure. But maybe he's going ahead with the esports strategy made famous by Yano, where he starts on the mediums and then slices through the field in the final few laps. Eccentric gets the purple middle sector as he comes across. Very tricky braking. You need to carry a lot of speed at the apex, but not run too wide, which is super tricky. Just about keeps it inside using all of the track. One final braking zone, and then this is all about having a good form through there. Minimize wheel spin coming across the final corner. Looks super clean, and that's why he is on pole now with a 124 flat.
We only saw the tail end of that lap there, coming through past the hanger straight through Stowe and Club, and we just saw an absolutely fantastic lap there from Eccentric. That puts him so achingly close to the 123s. But one thing he will be happy with is that he currently has provisional pole with 3 minutes left to go. And this is kind of about the time the drivers come out for their out lap and last flying lap of the session. This will be the last chance. If there are drivers in the pits, this will be their final chance to get in a lap, maximum 2, although I do think 1 lap is probably all they have right now with regards to the time constraints. We do see Kaushik on his out lap right now, Wilster, Babaji, Danish Smith, all on their out laps right now. A couple of other drivers coming into the pits.
Yeah, if you were to enter pits, you'd probably have just about enough time to get across the line before the checker flags are out. Pro player on his out lap, followed by a Williams on its hot lap. Helium's joined the server back, which is great, but I don't think he'll be able to put in a quali lap. So it'll be a challenge for him starting from the back of the pack.
Mara is coming out on his outlap, and he is choosing to come out on the medium tires. If he can qualify above the top 10, which is definitely a possibility on medium tires, even more specifically so for Maranello, if he can, he'll be setting himself up well for the race, because we do know the potential that he has to slice through the field, and the esports strategy that you did mention does come into effect after that. You see Wilster here cutting through Maggots, Beckett, Chapel. A little bit wide there through Chapel, but it's fine. Spits him out onto the hanger straight. You see Maranello weaving vigorously in the background there.
Trying to get those tires into temperature just for some sort of to bring his mediums into contention. So last season he did the same, qualied on mediums, but he could only do a 124.9, whereas the pole time last season was a 124.3. So clearly all of these boys are much quicker than they were last season. So it'll be interesting to see if Mara staying away from the game and not being so regular has improved as well. But currently a 124.9, which he did last season round, will probably put him between P5 and P6. Although I do feel like all of these drivers will improve, and at least the top 10 should be in the 124s.
We are coming down to the last 1 minute of qualifying now, and it really is now going to start hotting up as we see a lot of drivers trying to improve their lap times, trying to get onto pole. As we do see Mara coming across the line here. Is this him going on his final flying lap? It is. We'll
Across
stay
the
on board.
MotoGP start stop, across corps now super important. On the mediums, will sacrifice some grip around here coming through Beckett's, and then Chapel want to get a brilliant perfect exit, opens the DRS nice and early onto the hanger straight, and Stowe is one of the trickiest corners in my opinion on this track. But let's see what kind of an exit he gets. Takes an apex slightly earlier than he might have wanted to, but coming across Vale Club and across the line, it did say he had purple middle sector as someone's gone off in Laffield, I believe. But Mara with a 124.6, which is quite the drive on those mediums.
Centric finishes his qualifying, can only go second fastest. Capeles finishing in fourth overall. A couple of drivers right at the tail end of the grid. Chris By not setting a lap at all. Charles down in P15. Myth has retired from the session. I think that's probably because he could set a faster lap and just decides to end the session in the pits. Tanish cannot improve on his time, but right now, as it stands, Myth is going to be on pole position for the race.
Look at the time separating the top three, barely anything.
It is just under a tenth of a second. Yeah, it is under a tenth of a second separating the top three drivers. Less than that, actually, more like 700ths of a second separating those three drivers. It is extremely tight at the top of the grid in Tier 1 here. These three drivers especially going right at it. A couple more drivers coming across the line. Mara had a chance to get another lap started there, but I don't think he's going to do that because his ERS is quite high. I think that will be his last lap. He finishes the session in P6 as it currently stands. Black Sheep in P5. He has invalidated his lap, so that will be his last lap of the session. And I think there are no other drivers currently out on a lap, so I think that's going to be our starting order. Myth on pole position.
Myth, Eccentric, Tanish. I think that's how the championship table reads as well, apart from Eccentric being on top. So it's Eccentric, Myth, Helium, and Tanish in the championship table. But out here on the race, 3 of the top 4 will be battling, as Helium unfortunately lost connection for a while, and that instead meant that he couldn't get a lap in. So it'll be interesting to see how Helium tries to get up the field as well. He's down there 13, but as you can see, with a 123.9, pretty much Myth with a blinder of a lap. 1.5 tenths separating the top 3.
not that much of a difference between the fastest and slowest time. So I get the feeling that it might not be just settled based on pace today. I think it's going to be an unpredictable race, and we've got a
Especially with
real
Yeah,
go on.
especially with Mara's strategy in the mix over there. You've got like P6 on the medium, so that's going to change a lot of things as well. Because when these soft runners do pit, there's a high probability of them coming out into traffic. But when Maranello maybe does pit, he's more or less likely to come out with whoever is the net position he was battling, right? So that's going to be interesting as well.
Yep, it is going to be very interesting. But that is the end of qualifying. You did witness qualifying with us right there. Let us know, what are your predictions for the race. Any left field predictions, any crazy predictions you have, drop them down in the chat. And Rusty, I think now is an appropriate time after watching qualifying. What are your thoughts? What do you think is going to be pushing for the win today?
I'm strictly off predictions. I think over the course of the last season, I have jinxed enough drivers. So my predictions are just with respect to safety cars, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll see a safety car. But I do believe we will see one lap one incident on turn two, turn three. Yeah.
Very specific. Uh, well, I will say that I don't want to be too. I don't want to romanticize it too much, but is it too much to ask for a Maranello win today on his return? I think it might be, considering we have really fast drivers in Tier 1. I mean, saw evidenced by the top three in qualifying. Those three boys there. And maybe you could throw in a couple of drivers into that list as well. Maybe not having the greatest qualifying today, but Tier 1 is very, very well balanced. Top 10, 15 drivers in IRC racing here. So Mara's got his work cut out, but I think everybody's going to keep it clean. I think there's going to be no major incidents on lap one. I think we're going to see a little bit more action further on in the race.
Right, as all of the drivers are busy selecting the strategies, and that's like this is like when I'm the most nervous after quali and before race, because there's 1,000 thoughts going through your head. You're thinking about your race start, you're thinking about when to attack, when to not attack, you're thinking about the fuel load you want to carry, you're thinking about if you're starting beyond the top 10, you're thinking about the tire strategy. Is it worth going with the alternate, or do you just want to stick with the traditional sauce? Because if you do have a safety car in the first 5 to 6 laps, it gives everyone on the softs a major advantage. As Helium's unfortunately had contact with someone and that's disqualified him. So he's going to start on tires which are like probably under 70 degrees Celsius, whereas you want them to be around 85 to 90 degrees at the restart.
He's going to be very, very sideways at the race start, something tells me. Going to be fighting the car for rear grip, fighting the car on the start to make sure they're staying in a straight line, not careening into cars either side of him. But about the safety car that you mentioned, we haven't seen many safety cars around Silverstone, so it's going to be interesting to see. But as you did mention, if we do see a safety car come out, either a virtual safety car, not so much, but if we do see a full safety car coming out, then there's definitely is that possibility of going for all the soft runners to go onto the mediums and maybe try to go onto softs later on in the race, maybe to maximize their pace a little bit more. But I'm not the expert when it comes to this. I guess we'll let these guys. Let these guys dictate their race pace, because they are the ones on the race. They are the ones on track right now. So, just coming around through sector 2 here on the formation lap. Still trying to sort out a couple of issues in the background here, so that it'll be a brilliant experience for you guys in the chat. Do, as I did say, do let us know your predictions. We are seeing some coming through right now. Rahul mentioning he wants a Myth P1, Eccentric P2, a couple P3. Could be, definitely.
Yeah, and Atulya's Dikshit is up there with Mara backing the known horse around this track.
Predicting a Mara P1 is not an uncommon bet at this time, is it? It's not. You're not really being very
Yeah,
unimaginative.
you're not gambling.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're just trying to solidify your own chances. It's
It's
all
like
right though.
saying tomorrow's race result might be Ham Botwer.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Sherlock. That's quite the prediction.
Well done, Barcelona. It's going to be this weekend. On that topic, Hamilton has picked up his 100th race pole position this weekend. Officially the first driver in history. Do apologise if I've spoiled it for you, but you should have been watching. I didn't watch it either, but it's all right. It's Barcelona. 5 red lights. We'll talk about that in a second. And away we go. Charles Leclerc already a drive-through penalty for a jump start. That'll affect his race massively as two drivers coming wheel to wheel down to turn 1. Everybody's getting a little bit out of track bounds there. A couple of positions exchanged. A couple of drivers already dropping back. Helium especially dropping back all the way to the back of the grid. Eccentric at the front leading us away. Lots of
Hello,
drivers.
baby's lost all of those positions he gained through that brilliant lap on the mediums. He's now down to P13, but Eccentric jump Smith on the start, gets lesser wheel spin. I think he reacted to the lights a little earlier as well and used all of that inside line to make sure he is ahead as they headed into turn 2. But Black Sheep now fighting Kaushik as they come across the MotoGP start-finish straight.
She was very briefly on Oxygen's bumper as he was going through Luffield, but then there's a little bit of contact there coming through Cop's corner between, it seemed like
Pro player and Aditya.
Pro player and Aditya, yes. A little bit of contact there coming through Cops. One of the drivers went wide. It might have been Aditya, yep, he's behind. He's currently on the attack now from Mara. Mara's coming back now through the field. And he does take P10 coming down the hang straight into Stowe, and now his focus will be firmly on trying to keep those tyres on for as long as possible, because that will only guarantee him the best chance of race victory today.
And up ahead, he is battling a driver he knows very well, his teammate from last season. He knows inside out as to how Babaji drives right from the setups he prefers. So it's going to be interesting to see how Madanillo Baby uses all of that knowledge. Meanwhile, the timing chart shows that he's up to P6. Not quite sure how that took place.
Although it does seem like the
Yeah,
timing charts are messed up right now is what Deepak's telling us. So yes, we will wait a little. Maranello up into P1 it says. Now down to P13. I think we'll give it a second, give it a lap or two to sort of. Yes, we will give it a little bit of time to sort itself out here. We should also note that Charles Leclerc has already served his drive-through penalty. He is last in the grid, but he has now got a nice clean slate for him to chase down after the grid after a jump start forced him to pick up a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, meanwhile, it looks like Eccentric's pulling away from Myth. I think the gap's around 7/10 right now, but it does look like he's running some clean laps and he is pulling away. You can already see there's quite a bit of distance, and if Myth doesn't have the purple sectors, I'm just expecting Eccentric has those 2 purple sectors. As Oxygen, Couple and Tanish continue their fight for the final podium position right now.
Bit of a gap forming now between, it seemed like P5 backwards was starting to spread out a little bit, but I do take that back now because I think it now seems to be P1, 2, 3 putting away from the rest of the field. Now Couple dropping a bit further back, 1.3 seconds off Tanish now. Eccentric also pulling away equally well from Myth, 1.5 seconds clear now, as the timing tree has fixed itself and we can get a better idea of where everyone is after this initial opening stage, as Mara has made up a drop back a couple of positions at the start and has made them up again to a relative amount of success up into P8 and fighting for P7 with no more PP.
He's super quick. He got 2 positions over the course of the last lap. He got Babaji and Kaushik, and now he's hot on the tail of Nomo Pro Player as they come through Cops. All about trying to get your entry perfectly into Maggots, and both the drivers do really well over there. Then you're thinking about your exit because it's probably the best overtaking spot. DRS has been enabled. However, Nomo Pro Player also has DRS off of Black Sheep, so it's all the more difficult to try and get the move done now.
lap 3, meaning DRS is enabled. So now we're going to be seeing the DRS trains forming a little bit. We are going to be seeing drivers following each other, but not able to overtake each other, which is probably the one problem with these modern Formula 1 cars, is drivers can get close but can't overtake due to all the aerodynamic. Dirty air there, encountering it. Mara tries to go down the inside of Pro P, coming through Abby here, trying to maybe get something done here through.
It's down the inside and gets the move done on farm, but now Pro P probably has DRS. It's all about getting a good exit. I'm not sure if Mara did get DRS off of Black Sheep. Looks like he did. Yeah, both of them. So now it's about who is the latest of late breakers, but Mara closes down the door, ensures that he does not leave any space open for Pro P, as I think that was Black Sheep going a bit out of shape. But now Mara's got his sights set on Black Sheep, another driver he knows really well.
Two good friends off the track and now rivals on the track. Ferrari versus McLaren at Silverstone right now, as Black Sheep is trying to defend his position from Maranello Baby behind him, who's charging up the field at a rapid pace. We did briefly see the telemetry data popping up there for one of the soft runners. We do see the tyres already in the yellow. So it's going to be interesting to see how long the soft runners can continue to run on the soft tyres. I think about 11, 12 laps if I'm not wrong.
Exactly where when the pit window opens between 9 to 12, and the undercut is super powerful over here, especially if you're stuck in a train like this. If you can try and go in a lap early, it's okay if you lose time towards the end of the race. The undercut is super powerful, as Maranello Baby just 3/10 behind Black Sheep right now, who does not have DRS off of the car ahead on board Oxygen right now, who's trying to get into the fight for P4. Let's see how Maranello Baby judges this move as they come across onto the...
A little bit of a gap forming at the front of the field here as Mara goes wheel to wheel with Black Sheep through Brooklyn's corner. Black Sheep may go for a side-by-side move through Lovefield, chooses against it, can't really keep side-by-side with Mara anyway as they come through onto Sector 2 here, coming through Cop's corner, and I think Mara has taken the position there.
Made it look easier than it actually was, but up ahead, Eccentric's just pulling away with the lead. It doesn't look like Myth's able to match his pace right now. The gap nearing 2 seconds right now, and the same can be said about Myth and Tanish. So Eccentric enjoying his first stint, as we have a racing point which seems to have spun around, and I'm not sure, but there was a car which was not facing.
A Mercedes right at the tail end of the grid right now. Mercedes. Oh, it was Charles Leclerc, I think it might have been. Although I think Charles Leclerc is all the way at the back of the grid because of his early pit stop. Not entirely sure. Me neither. But Baba comes into the pits now for his first pit stop. Are we seeing, is this sort of an early decision, or is this just a case of worn tires this early into the stint?
I'm not quite sure. He might be looking at the hards, because 20 laps on the medium might not be the best, as Kaushik pulls down the inside as he comes wheel to wheel and gets the move done. Propi will try to fight back as he has the inside line.
They will go side by side through
Lovefield.
Yep. They will go side by side through Lovefield, coming through Woodcote, still banging wheels as they come down towards Sector 2, now towards Cop, still side by side. Will they
And
remain
Helium
side
joins
by
the
side?
party.
Both these drivers backing each other up into Helium as they come through Maggots Beckett's now. Helium will be licking his lips, looking at this battle ahead of him. Any mistake from either of those two drivers right now, and Helium's going to be pouncing, jumping at the bit here. He does have DRS, carrying a lot more pace out of Chapel on the attack on PP. Now Pro Player has much more things to worry about now. Both of them are closing down on Kaushik, coming into Stowe corner as they just try. Oh, brilliant move there by Helium, but Pro Player will come right back at him down into Vale. Brilliant racing here from these three drivers.
Meanwhile, Maranello Baby's made easy work of the 1.5 seconds he had to make to catch up to Oxygen, and now he joins the battle for P4. His tires in prime condition, whereas the tires of the two drivers in front of him probably falling away and they will be struggling for grip right now. Hot on the tail of Oxygen. Can we switch on telemetry, please?
It is on. It's there down at the at your bottom right.
Yeah, so Mara still preserved a lot of his ERS. He still has 80% left. That just shows you, it's a testament to how good of a driver he is to be able to get through the field while not expending his ERS at a rate some of the others might have done. Ooh, Kaushik all out of shape coming out of Corps, loses his rear end, but luckily for him, keeps the car on track. It'll be interesting to see what kind of damage he has, but I think
I don't think it should be anything major because I don't think he impacted a wall. I don't also think that there was contact between him and Helium as he was passing him. But yeah, I think it will cost him a couple of positions as Maranello goes down the inside of Oxygen. Oxygen fights back through Club. Ooh, Oxygen narrowly managing to keep the position there as Mara is now on the attack from Kapil as they come down towards Abbey corner.
yeah, Kapil looks down the inside of turn 1, but Maranello may be leaving no room, but late on the brakes. Will Oxygen get a switcheroo done? As they come across onto the Wellington straight, Oxygen and Kapil will have DRS. I don't believe Maranello baby will be having DRS. Oh, interesting. He got the move done just after the detection zone, and that's probably protecting his position right now.
Now that he is ahead, this will not be good news for him heading down towards the hangar straight. That's where these two drivers will now be looking to mount the overtake back on Mara as Oxygen loses 2 positions in the span of a single sector here as he goes from P4 down to P6 now, and also carrying a penalty. Not good news for him in the opening stages here as no more pro player has dropped a little further back down to P9 as well. Wilster, both the Red Bull. Ooh, is that Kaushik having another spin? Yes, he has had another moment there coming through. It seems like he's just coming through Luffield there. He's had another moment on the exit of Luffield.
Once you bake the tires, it's really hard to get back into temperature and you take a lot out of them. So he should be pitting right now, but he has retired. I think he's lost it out of Corps again.
Oh dear, not a good race for Kaushik so far. One of the racing points already out of the race. Charlotte now the sole hope for Racing Point to pick up points in this race so far. Well, the remainder of this race. So
I do have to say Mara is probably counting his luck right now because a safety car at that point of time would have made things perfect for all of these soft runners. But something we missed is Eccentric has decided to pit. He probably was banking on a VSC or a safety car, or it's probably time for him to pit. So he ensures that Mid does not get the undercut on him. So I presume he will continue holding on to his lead as he gets through the ghosted car of Chris By and gets some DRS assistance on his outlap, which is massive in his battle for P1 right now.
He has come out in relatively clean air. Now he will pass his teammate Ninja Zero, who, if team orders are in place, will allow the faster driver through, maybe allow Eccentric due to their differing strategies. Ninja Zero and his teammate now will make contact in about a couple of corners time. Myth after the race leader had pit. Myth is now in clean air. Danish is behind him and Mara is obviously on the attack as Danish picks up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, that's going to be super costly, especially given how close all of these battles are. So Myths decided to stay out for another lap, which probably is not going to be the best of decisions. In my opinion, I have some fresh experience of this track, and I think the undercut's about 2 seconds per lap if you stay out. So Myth might be about 5 seconds behind Eccentric when he does pit and come out. So not the smartest of moves in my opinion.
Eccentric also being helped massively by the drivers, the soft runners ahead of him who are also pitting, helping him a little bit and encountering a little less resistance in terms of position. Now up into P6 after finishing his pit window. Now we see the graphic popping up now for the lead medium tires, a one-stop strategy does open up for a lot of drivers with the soft runners now exercising that option as Baba is fighting with Shalalak, the lone Racing Point now fighting 4 points. They're coming, the switch back there from Baba coming through onto the Wellington straight here. DRS open, he'll try to get the position into Brooklands. Shalalak defends his inside well as expected. Baba gets the switch back, now side by side going through Luffield. Great racing from both drivers, keeping it very clean, showing each other the right amount of respect. Now coming through Woodcut. And Baba slots back behind Shalalak going into sector 2. Shalalak getting a little bit sideways.
Baba decided to go go side by side through Maggots, but gets a brilliant exit. Those softs of Shalalak doing no favors to him, and should be an easy move coming across the hanger straight for Babaji. But some brilliant defending by Shalalak, the defending tier 2 champion, to hold off Babaji for so long.
Yeah, it is brilliant racing, and more importantly, the respect they're showing to each other when racing. Not something that we would usually expect because it's every man for himself out here, but obviously very, very high standards in terms of racing etiquette, and we're seeing that here on display.
So, sorry to cut you in, but Aditya has retired, but his car is still in drivable condition, so I'm assuming he's retired on his own. Rage quit, maybe, not quite sure, because it didn't look like he was battling anyone, but his car is out there now parked on the hanger straight, and we do not have a VSC or a safety car, so everything's back as normal. And Myth now jumps into the pit, so it'll be interesting to see where he comes out with respect to Eccentric.
Eccentric right now about 15 to 20 seconds behind them. Will keep Payne inherit the position ahead of Myth. Myth still in the pits, now coming onto the medium tires. Maranello will inherit the race lead in the meantime as he's out there starting on the medium tires. Helium, Myth just coming out of the pits now. Will he keep the position ahead of Eccentric? Has Eccentric decision to go for the overcut worked out here? It has worked out fantastically well for Eccentric, who does take the position and comes out about 2 to 3 seconds up the road from Myth.
To be fair to Myth, he did not lose a lot of time because of his attempt at the overcut. Even though Eccentric split 2 laps ahead of him, he's only gained about a second and a half. So towards the end of the race, it'll be interesting to see how Myth holds on to his tires, and to see if he'll be able to get those tires to allow him to work some magic up and try and get the move done on Eccentric. But Couple right now back on this battle with Oxygen, now on fresh tires. Oxygen did get the undercut done on him and got that position on Couple. But now Couple less than a second coming through Corpse. It's all about trying to get a good exit out of Chapel and then try to get that move done on the hanger straight.
Picking up another penalty there coming out of the pit lane. And with that, we have officially all the soft runners have now pitted to mediums. My apologies. The only driver out there now who has a little bit of play in their strategy available, who can experiment a little bit, is Mara. He sits at the front of the grid now. Also Helium, who started on the medium tires, and Worcester as well. And I believe Ninja pitted very early on for the medium tires. I don't think. Oh no, I think he's just.
Ninja started on the mediums.
So we have a couple of drivers out there with a little bit of flexibility in their race plan. Still, they can choose how to plan their pit strategy depending upon changing situations. They can wait out for a safety car. But how long do you think they're going to be waiting before they start to think, okay, it's time to go on the softs?
I think they don't want to push those softs for beyond 12 laps. But ideally, you wanna keep on softs for about 10 laps so that you're able to push all throughout and you don't need to worry about tire management. So I do believe they'll all be pitting around lap 15 or 16. But Couple right now super close to Oxygen. Can he get the move done this time around? 4 tenths behind, probably will lose a couple of tenths because of the dirty air as they come across Maggots and Beckett's. Couple actually doing really well to not lose any time. But Oxygen doing just about enough to ensure that he's ahead when they get into the braking zone, and probably now is already thinking about how he can make sure he gets a good run out of turn 4 onto the Wellington straight. But Couple relentless with his pursuit as they come across the start-finish straight, now renamed Sir Lewis Hamilton straight.
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Across... Yeah, go on.
As he has picked up his 100th pole position today, it's only appropriate that we mention that he has cemented his place in history. We are still on board here on the battle between Couples and Oxygen, heading down onto the Wellington straight now. Couple out, has the IRC open, and I think it's going to be a routine overtake for him. Will Oxygen choose to hang it around the outside? Chooses against it, but will he get another chance here through Luffield? No, chooses just locked behind Couple, but he'll get another chance on the Alfa Romeo down the hang straight. Yep.
That's one of the brilliant things about this track. Both of the straights are spread across so evenly that even if you lose the position during the course of the lap, you don't need to wait too long, as you see Eccentric making easy work of Wilster G, who is on those old mediums. Can we quickly go on to can we check the time to leader instead of interval so that we know exactly how far ahead is Maranello baby? So he's got 16 seconds on Eccentric. So when he does pit and come out, I think the pit stop costs you about 23 seconds. So he's got to be at least a second quicker every lap on those mediums. Then again, we need to keep in mind that it's one thing to catch up to a car and a whole other thing to get the move done.
We have seen the pace that Eccentric, the likes of Eccentric, the likes of Mick, the likes of Danish carry in Tier 1 so far, so it'll be very interesting to see how the young blood fare against the old guard, if you will. Mara against the new boys, not new boys necessarily, but the drivers who have been ripping it up in Tier 1 this season. It'll be interesting to see how he fares against them and how they fare against current reigning world champion in a bid to put their own names into the history books. We do see the battle between Oxygen and Couple still hasn't resolved itself, and regarding what you said just a little bit earlier about the two straights being so perfectly positioned that the battle isn't over, I couldn't agree with you more. It's in such a way that between the two straights there's no real place where the driver ahead can completely leave the other one in the dust, assuming they are on a similar skill level, because it's fairly easy to follow the car ahead as well. And now we'll see Oxygen getting DRS here. I think he might be a bit too far back to make the most of the opportunity, but never say never. No, he's too far back to mount the attack. Definitely on the next lap will be his best opportunity. But yeah, it's a great circuit, Silverstone, and it makes for a great spectacle for us up here in the commentary.
Sorry to cut you in, but can we go on board Maranello baby, as it is lap 16 and he has decided to pit? Where will he come out and what will be the gap to the race leader as he comes out right now? I think he's come out P5. It'll be interesting to see the gap to Eccentric and Myth. But on those tops, it'll be interesting to see what kind of work he can do, what kind of magic he can come up with. So gap to the race leaders, probably about 13 seconds. Can we check, go on to...
Yeah, roughly it's about
the
13.
gap to leader?
It's about 13 seconds between Maranello and Eccentric right now, if you add up. Yeah, there you go.
So he's got a little more than a second to try and make up over the course of each lap, as Myth being held behind by Wilster is doing no good to him, as Maranello baby on his outlap already setting purple sectors. No more pro player out of ERS as he joins the battle for P7 right now onto the tail of Oxygen.
Tell you what now, Maranello on those Red Bull soft tires now is a man on a mission. He will now be flying. Every single lap is going to be at 100% output here. He's going to be pumping lap after lap. Every lap is going to be a battle for fastest lap for him now, because he is going to be fighting every single lap now all the way till the end, because right now on his mind is that race win as he just slices his race past Ninja Zero. Ninja getting very close to his diffuser there on the exit of it seems like onto the Wellington straight. My apologies.
Yep, Mara around the outside of farm to get that position, showing all of his skill and the additional grip the softs allow you to get, as Oxygen couple are barely separable right now, but we do have a yellow flag and it looks like it's either is it Black Sheep? Not quite sure, but there was a brief yellow flag, but we're back out right now.
I think it may have just been a driver who just skirted onto the gravel for a second, but then managed to extricate themselves on their own, so I don't think it should be anything to worry about.
But what's wrong? What's gone wrong with Black Sheep? We saw him up in the top 6, but right now he's at the bottom of the time chart. Although we do have a driver yet to pit, but it's still interesting. Something's surely gone wrong. Okay, that explains as Maranello Baby does get the fastest time of the race right now, cutting down the gap to the race leaders now.
This battle between Oxygen and Couple still ongoing, and it also allows No More Pro player to kind of tag on to the back of that train now, and that'll give Oxygen something to worry about, because until now he's had sort of a clean shot at Kapil, just managing to stay within his DRS, but now he has No More Pro player to worry about, and maybe within a couple of laps we see Helium getting involved in this battle as well, and then it becomes a real skirmish for that P5. It's just going to be who can extract the most space and get the overtake done.
Helium on those softs is probably his favorite right now, because these three guys fighting each other are doing no favors to one another. Meanwhile, can we keep the telemetry at leader so that we know the pace at which Mara is catching up to the race leaders? Because when he came out, it was 13 seconds, but as you can see over there, he's already cut the gap down to about 10.5 seconds, and he's still on his mission, continuing to put in those purple sectors.
Wilster has also pitted now as recently as this lap to go onto a set of softs, so that'll give Helium something to worry about, because now, as we were mentioning just a little bit earlier, as Maranello goes fastest again, that's going to be a constant theme, guys, so just keep an eye on that delta. It'll steadily keep dropping. Although we do have to keep in mind that we are looking at the gap between Mara and Eccentric, seeing how far he is away from the lead, but he does have to get through Danish and Myth before he gets to Eccentric, and overtaking these boys is not an easy task. They're not one to give up without a fight. Obviously they will be on a set of medium tires, so worn medium tires, so how much of a fight they'll be able to put up, well, we'll have a look when Mara does catch up with them. That delta is steadily dropping, 10.2 seconds now, as we are coming on to lap 19 out of 26. 7 laps, 10 seconds. What are your odds? What are the odds?
Well, to be honest, it doesn't look like Mara's catching up to them at the pace he needs to. At least not to the race leader, but I think he is catching Tanish at a pretty good pace right now.
I think definitely Mara is going to be eyes on the prize, or at least at the minimum, it's going to be eyes on the podium. It's going to be important points for Ferrari in the Drivers' Championship, in the Constructors' Championship. My apologies. Going into the final stages of this race now. Helium now very slowly closing in on that train. He was not that far behind a couple of laps ago, and he's definitely not that far behind now. It's going to be very interesting to see how the battle for P5 unfolds. Wilster also, he's about 10 seconds further back down the field, but he's got that fresh soft tires, whereas these guys ahead of Helium now are running on 10-lap-old mediums. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this battle fares out, and who's going to be finishing where in this battle here of 4 cars.
Couple doing really well so far to try and keep ahead of the cars, putting all that pressure on them. Both Couple and Oxygen doing well with that ERS as well. They don't want to use it all up too quickly because I think pro players already exhausted his ERS and now it's all about trying to regen. Yep, pretty much done because the next time he hits the overtake button is going to be back at 0 and then the red lights flashing on his rear, which means Helium will be super happy as his red lights are already on right now, and if Helium can get a really good exit out of Chapel, he could try and make a move down the hangar straight. Don't think he's close enough right now, but he'll definitely be on the hunt as they head on across this lap onto the Wellington straight next.
This section through Sector 1, he's going to be making up a massive amount of time on Pro P as he loses that, we were talking a little bit about losing his ERS. Helium himself, fairly low on ERS, but he's on much newer tires. And you're going to see the tire advantage. He's going to be making up valuable tenths through each corner on Pro P. And it's going to be important coming into this last section of the race. It's going to be where Helium can find pace over the drivers ahead of him, because if he spends too long behind these guys, then maybe, just maybe, there's no chance of him making up the positions on these guys either. So he's going to have to dispatch these guys quickly if he wants to fight a little further up the grid towards the last couple of laps.
Meanwhile, Mitch picks up a super expensive 3-second time penalty. Tanish, we already know, has a 5-second time penalty. So I think because of that 3-second time penalty, now I think Mara might be in the hunt for P2 as well. Can we go on to intervals now, please? Ooh, we have Ninja Zero who seems to have lost it. Coming.
Track limits a major concern around Silverstone. Not seeing quite as many drivers invalidating as we've seen in Austria and maybe France, but definitely does seem to be catching drivers out more times than often.
Especially, I think one of the corners is Stowe, because on the exit, because if you get on the throttle a bit too early, or if you have a slightly wrong line, you tend to go extremely wide on the exit, and that starts giving you a penalty. And apart from that, probably Maggots and Beckets, if you probably if you make a slight mistake and go too far into a corner, that might give you a warning as well. But that's probably the only two places you might start racking up all of these warnings.
I think, yeah, and I think Cops as well. Cops, I'm not sure if you did mention Cop, but Cops is also another one of those corners. Yep.
The exit at Cops is also super tricky because you're carrying so much speed and you want your front to bite in at the same time. As Black Sheep now putting in a charge, trying to get past, and looks like he is past Charles Leclerc right now as they head into the final braking zone. Coming into Club, comfortably up ahead. Charles Leclerc does not think about making a dive down the inside. No More Pro player also picks up a 3-second time penalty. So I think that evens it out. Right now, Couple's the only one clean in that battle for P5.
That will work out very well to Couple. All he has to do now is stay ahead of these three drivers. Although it's going to be, even if he can't stay ahead, all he has to do is stay within a couple of seconds, as there is a train now forming. And being in a DRS train also allows the drivers behind, maybe not necessarily Couple, who has to stay on maximum attack to stay ahead of these guys, but it allows the guys in the DRS train to kind of ease off on their fueling, ease off on the ERS a little bit, maybe harvest some energy as they do have that DRS advantage over the car ahead. Maybe not necessarily Helium, because he's got two cars ahead who are also within DRS of the driver respectively ahead, but they're not pushing quite as hard as Couple right now, who has to keep that position as Oxygen just moves out of the slipstream here. They go side by side through Brooklands. They also stay side by side through Luffield. Couple doing very well to position the car perfectly well. Does go a little bit on the gravel, might seem like on the exit. Coming through.
Interestingly, Oxygen did have the inside line and takes the lead as they head into Cops. Brilliant move and brilliant racing in general by both the drivers to give each other just about enough space.
This also allows PP pro player. A lot of guys in the chat have been mentioning that maybe that's not the right way to say it, but no more pro player. Also tagging onto the back of the battle now. Couple getting the position back instantly though on the hangar straight. This is something that we've talked about a little bit in this race, which is that the overtake is never really over per se. For not trying to make a pun there, but it worked out well for me. These four drivers now involved in the battle for P5. Couple is now in the best position to keep that P5 due to penalties that these other drivers are carrying, but now Maranello is within 7/10 of Danish ahead of him. I think P3 is all but his for now, but he is still about 7 seconds off Myth, and Myth is only carrying a 3-second penalty. So unless he can make up 4 seconds
with the DRS, looks down the inside again. Pretty much what they did last time around, but had a better run in now. Will Couple think about going round the outside? Not quite now, as Helium has the tires but just has no space to try and get a move done on No More Pro Player. But will Couple do what he's been doing across this race, get the move done back at the hangar straight, gets that nice exit out of Chapel? That's what he's been doing so far, but it'll be interesting to see what he does this time around. Meanwhile, Maranello Baby dives down the inside. Tanish leaving just about enough room. Will they bang wheels? Tanish will have the inside as they break for club. Maranello Baby breaks super late, gets the move done, and is now P3 on the track. And it'll be difficult, but he still possibly can try and put up a charge. But Myth, meanwhile, is also within a second of Eccentric. As we know, Eccentric styles just that little bit older, and Oxygen holds Couple of good time around, and Helium, meanwhile, got the move done on No More Pro Player.
Oxygen has stayed ahead. That will be a massive development in that battle, because if Couple does decide to make the overtake on the Wellington straight, then of course Oxygen will have the chance on the hangar straight. So it's going to be interesting to see how this battle. It's going to be. I think we've fairly seen. I think we've got a good idea of who's going to be finishing in P5. We still have Oxygen with the penalties, Danish as well with penalties, but Danish is a little further up the road from. Ooh, is this contact?
Together.
Oh, and that's Couple. Is that him officially out of the race for P5 now as he drops down to P8, losing the span of 3 positions within a lap. Terrible luck for Couple there. A little bit of contact, I think.
I'm sorry to cut you in, but can we go on board the race leaders, because they're within 2 tenths, 3 tenths as they come across. Myth did try putting on a charge, used up all of his ERS. We are aware that Myth has a 3-second time penalty, but all of these boys, they do want to finish ahead on track as well as they come across the finish line. 1 more lap to go. Myth does have the softer tires, will have the DRS advantage as well. Let's see what's happening there. So locks up, and that's not going to help his cause right now.
Also, the amount of time Myth spends battling with Eccentric, if he does end up losing time, even if it does put him within 3 seconds of Mara, it's going to be P2 for Maranello as opposed to P3. Right now, occupying the 3rd podium place, but it will depend upon how this battle turns out.
Yep. Eccentric did run a little bit wide, but not quite wide enough for Myth to try and put on a charge. Meanwhile, Helium and No More Pro Player still hot on the tail of Oxygen. No More Pro Player trying to make a move on Helium, but doesn't quite get it. Will he look down the inside? No, Helium cuts it off. Fair racing over there. Elbows out.
Going for the overtake down into Stowe. He does have the DRS. Eccentric can't fight it. Just carrying too much pace. Myth takes the track position, but unfortunately won't be able to take the race win. Not enough time to put a big enough gap between himself and Eccentric. The 3-second penalty means Myth will come across the line in P1. So it gets very sideways out of the final corner there. But he will finish P1, but he will
Helium with a last move on Oxygen gets the move done for the battle of P5, which is quite possibly the battle of the race. Will probably get across the line. P5 last ditch effort late on the brakes, using all of that grip provided by the softs to come across the line. P5 Oxygen, I think, carried a 6-second time penalty, and that instead puts him behind couple as well. But what a race! These four for P5, probably the battle of the season so far for me.
Definitely, definitely. We've been seeing action all over the field. Feel a little unlucky for Oxygen. Got a little unlucky with the penalty, and obviously that's the only thing that jeopardized his chances at P5 today. But a brilliant race from the top 8 driver. Oh, as we see, that's Myth upside down there after the end of the
Hanging
race.
like a cow. Is that him? Yep.
Yep. Just to quote Nico Hulkenberg, there he was hanging like a cow.
But
And he
one
obviously
thing I'm sorry to cut you in, but one thing we did not notice is I think Myth had 6 seconds in time penalty, and Manello Baby loses out on P2 by just 3.5 tenths.
I was telling you that if that little spin that he had coming out of the last corner, if that was ended up being a spin and not just a big moment of oversteer, then it could have ended oh so differently for Myth. It could have been much worse for him. Helium picks up the in-game driver of the day, but do let us know who your driver of the day is in the chat, because that is definitely one hell of a race, and I'm obviously spoilt for choice. So many great performances across the board.
But Helium, I think I do agree with the game, given where he started and all the work he had to put in getting through the field, keeping it super clean, not aided by the DRS train that was there at all, but still coming P5, continuing in his pursuit for getting onto the top 3 in the championship. Brilliant drive by him. Brilliant drive by him. But out here, we do have our top 3. Before we get to them, let's quickly run through the list. Eccentric, brilliant start off the line, kept the race lead, did the undercut to ensure he was ahead. Myth barely hanging on to P2 with those penalties, but a brilliant lap in quali, cutting into the 123s. Marinello Baby doing Marinello Baby things, and Tanish with a brilliant drive. Kept it super clean, didn't necessarily have a lot of battles, but very consistent throughout. Helium, we just talked about. No More Pro Player, Couple, and Oxygen providing us with quite possibly the battle of the season. And then it was just about trying to keep it clean. Wilster, Babaji, Ninja Zero, Chris Bay disconnected quite a bit. And everyone beyond that had multiple incidents which put them out of the points. But what a race it was today.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic race. And I think we're going to have to concede that Helium was driver of the day. Fantastic race from him there. Started 13th, finished 5th overall in the timing. But we are now at the podium interview, and let's go from lowest to highest. So let's talk to Marinello first. Marinello, are you available? You are. It never ceases to be box office with you, does it? It's always got to set yourself up for big things. How was the race for you today?
I think it was horrible. It was all ruined at the start. I think my lights went out 5 seconds after everyone else, so effectively I qualified last on new tires.
I can second that, because even I was waiting with you, and then I saw that others have already gone, so I left because they were leaving. So I was like, I also don't know what happened at the start.
I'm not saying I threw away a win, but I definitely should have been. I think I didn't. Third isn't the maximized result, but given the fact I was dead last after turn 1, I'm pretty happy with the comeback drive. It was a lot of fun coming through the field. That was a really fun first stint. But yeah, I think my goal for today, coming back into league racing, was just to not spin and just sort of get it to the end of the race. So I think I did that fairly well.
Brilliant. So unfortunately, Cody's have used the reverse Uno card on you. Generally, it's the lobby hosts who start off up ahead, but the other way around. But do you regret not starting on the softs, not putting in a lap on the softs? Why did you choose the mediums?
So first of all, I'm not the lobby host. Since I moved to London, I don't have the ping with the rest of the grid. So, but yeah, I think it's the best decision I ever made to qualify on the medium tires, because if I qualified on softs and then dropped to the back, that would have effectively been race over.
Quite the drive from you. As we move on to Myth, quite the race ending you had over there, but a brilliant quali lap. What happened at lights out? How did you end up losing that position?
Yeah, I think my start was just poor. I had a lot of wheel spin at the start, lost to Eccentric, and lost the DRS as well, because I think Eccentric was using up his ERS. And as soon as he went out of DRS, my whole plan shifted. Like I just wanted to conserve my tires, go along on the softs, and uh, go try to catch back up using the mediums because there was no chance of overtaking him again with the same set of tires or conditions. So that was my whole plan of going a bit long on softs, and actually I'm happy that it worked out, excluding the penalty I got. I'm just happy that it worked out at the end, and overall I was actually really happy because I didn't really practice, and Silverstone isn't really a good track for me, and still I managed to do pretty well.
On the track, which is quite the. I think that's a good takeaway. But moving on to eccentric, brilliant race start, and you pretty much kept it super clean over there. But a little too early with the undercut. Were you worried about what Myth eventually did do over the course of the last 3 laps?
No, the plan was actually to pit 1 lap earlier, but since I saw the gap was around 2 seconds, so I went a lap later. And then on the mediums, I was pushing to keep that gap at over 3 seconds. Then when he got that penalty, I was just chilling.
So was it a conscious decision not to excessively fight him over the course of the final lap?
Yeah, I mean, there's no point fighting him. He was overtaking and like with 2 corners to go, and there's no way he can pull 3 seconds in that. So yeah, and in the end, he finished with I think 6 seconds as well. So there was no point
That's
fighting
gonna
that.
get removed, bro.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
That would probably explain why Mara was within 3.5
Three
tenths.
tenths, yeah.
Yeah, that would probably explain it. Yeah, I think that's all. I don't have any questions from my side. I think Rusty covered everything for me. Rusty, do you have anything else left to ask
Yep.
these guys?
Not to the podium finishers, but Tropi, are you here with us?
Yes, sir. I
Do
am.
you want to talk us through that brilliant battle you were within for
Uh,
P5 across the second stint? It was fabulous watching that battle. What's your take on it as you were in the
so
car battling?
in the first stint, me and Helium overtook me, so I knew that I have to do some kind of a the only mistake that I did was I did not catch up to these two guys before, because I knew that if I don't get their DRS, I won't be able to be ahead of Helium when he is done with his pit stop, because at the end of the day, medium to softs is the OP strategy on this track. So I was just trying to catch them, and once I caught them, I was just enjoying the battle from behind. But then later on, Helium joined us, and then it was no more enjoyment, and it was more about trying to save my position. But then I unfortunately got a 3 second in the last second lap, but otherwise I could have been P5. But nevertheless, a very good battle that happened. Unfortunate for Kapil that he when he was going side by side with Oxygen, there was a minor contact, and on that corner, even a minor contact will just send you off spinning. So unfortunate for him that he could not join us till the end, but nevertheless, a really great battle.
Thank you, everyone, and everyone who stayed around till the end, or if anyone's tuned in earlier or is watching the race after it's gone up on the channel. Thank you so much for staying with us around till here. Tune in same time tomorrow. I think post race we will have the tier 2 uh, drivers take on the same track tomorrow. Super exciting championship going across over there as well. Super close field and a lot of scintillating battles going on there. Similarly, we also have the tier 3 race earlier tomorrow. So do tune in tomorrow. And again, thank you for staying along with us for this ride. And also thank you to all the members of IRC and especially everyone who puts in so much work ensuring that we are able to bring this team to you. Thank you. Have a good night.